somehow Gen.G always gets the better of T1, but I'm hoping that the world semi-final buff for T1 is really gonna push them over the edge and and that would, by the way, be a great storyline. That Gen.G always beats them, but then they meet at Worlds and then T1 wins, right? I'm a Faker fanboy, so I'm gonna be fanboying Faker over the series, and I hope he can get the better of Trophy this time. And my prediction is gonna be 3-1 for T1.
Hey guys, this is Ashley Kang of Horizon Esports, and I'm joined by Jankos.
Hello everyone.
Going to Team Unknown.
Exactly. For now.
Yeah, for now. And I'm here at Paris as Jankos is currently giving us some valuable time between his stream, as he has been diligently streaming 2024 World Championship back in Poland. But how have you been doing? I know that your streams have been going super well.
I think it's been going quite okay so far, right? I had a lot of time in off-season where I was doing some Sabaton, some League of Legends, some Worlds now. I think I'm having, plenty of fun, if I can say that, because I would prefer to attend Worlds.
Man, I thought you said Oni fan.
No. No. So I think I'm enjoying myself and, trying to make the most out of it, right, until the season starts.
Yeah. Did you know that the video of you twerking to Canyon Picking Nidalee went very viral in Korea?
I didn't know. And now I'm throwing red on my face.
Yes, you are.
Well, Canyon has a very good Nidalee, and he proved it twice, I think, in the series against FlyQuest. And I also, in my PCAMs for Worlds, I had Nidalee as like one of the highest win rate champion, which is not expected, right? Because Nidalee was not very popular. But I believe that Canyon can play it and pull it out and win me the PCAMs. And currently, because of these two games, and because I think Elyoya played it a little bit in the play-ins, because of these games, Nidalee is actually the best win rate in PCAMs, 80% over Silas. Yay, thank you, Canyon. And of course, I love Canyon and I love Nidalee, so it was a really nice combination.
And you have a history with Canyon's Nidalee back in 2020.
Yeah,
maybe.
It's not the best history,
sorry for bringing up bad memories. But overall, because I've been at the venue all this time, so I'm kind of really close to what's going on. How would you say this Worlds 2024 has been from a perspective of viewer? Because I was actually super curious about that because I was in Berlin, I was in Paris. I don't know what it's like seeing it from the other side.
Well, I think that it's very fun, very interesting, because I think we have many picks that, we have Aurora and Yone that are banned or picked every game, and then maybe Skarner is there. But now I feel like the AD carry meta is shifting a little bit. We see more Ezra, less Jhin, but Jhin used to be very popular. We have, some counter picks top lane. We even had Bippo playing Urgot. We had Bippo playing Sett. We had Fiddlesticks, Nunu, thanks to Inspired. But we also had, champions like Kalista, Draven Kalista, multiple teams, Draven, mostly Hansama. I feel like it's very entertaining, at least to me, because the games are very competitive and back and forth. And sure, there are some games that are maybe slightly slower paced, especially the games where Smolder is present. They tend to be slower paced. But we also had, for example, Fnatic playing Smolder in the
Swiss
stage of the tournament, where they were trying to play fast-paced game with Smolder, fast-paced, and they actually got punished and they lost, right? Because they didn't know how to use it well. And then we had a team like Gen.G pull it out in Game 5 against FlyQuest, which I think they played it so well, and FlyQuest were the ones not doing enough in that series, right? So from my POV at least, it's very fun. I'm also looking forward to having LPL against LCK in the finals, because that's already confirmed, as we will have Weibo facing BLG and then T1 facing Gen.G. I'm a big T1 and Faker supporter, right? So as much as I love Canyon that we spoke about, and I love Gen.G as well.
I'm gonna tell this to Canyon.
But I do have an Oner jersey, because we did the jerseys in 2022 because of G2, right? So I have the Oner jersey that I was wearing I'm wearing the T1 jersey for the T1 games.
Makes sense.
And it's very difficult to choose who to support, because I kind of want both teams to win. I don't know who to support, really. I think it has to be T1 because of Faker, though. It just has to be.
I think, to be honest, many esports fans will agree with you. But If you had to choose one better jungler, who is it? Oner or Canyon?
Oh no, not like this. uh, I mean, I feel like they have like a little bit different playstyle. I feel like Canyon is more about making the game about himself and kind of going more of the route of a lot of clearing and helping his team on his good timings and actually prioritizing farm for himself. And this is how Gen.G plays around him, and they play that style very well. Meanwhile, Oner, I feel like he can be often more of a utility jungler. Not only, he can also play carries like Nidalee, like Lee Sin, but he also often is more of a engaged utility champion on champs like Vi or Skarner or Sejuani.
True.
So, I mean, I think right now, if I have to choose, I will be biased because Canyon had such a great two Nidalee games that I just cannot remove him from my memory. So I just have to say Canyon right now.
Yeah.
But I really like Oner as well. But I feel like this is not super. If I
Very
say
close,
Canyon,
very close. Yeah.
yeah, it's very close. But if I say Canyon, no one is gonna argue too much, right? Like everybody's gonna be like, yeah, Canyon's a great jungler, a great player, probably the best in the world. So I will say Canyon for now. But I think Oner is definitely getting there, and I think his performance right now compared to what it was in LCK Summer Split is so much like his ceiling. His play is in such a like high level. I mean, the whole T1, not just him, right?
Yeah.
But the whole T1 is performing so much better at Worlds, and sometimes you need that change of environment, and sometimes you need that change of pace. And I feel like this is what makes T1 have that breath of fresh air. And maybe they travel to Europe and they feel like it's super high, tough competitions. I mean, this roster has been together for like 3 years now, I think, right?
This is the third year, yeah.
Yeah, this is their third year, which is, slowly coming to an end, I suppose. I mean, the year, not the roster. I don't know about the roster, but I'm just saying that I think the change of pace and the change of environment helped them a lot. And I'm really glad to see them perform so well at Worlds.
Yeah, I did want to review a bunch of semifinals games because we had so many upsets, but I want to start with this. The overall theme seems to be whichever team that found this playstyle that is right for them seem to be succeeding. Like, for example, I feel like T1 decided to play highly aggressive, engage-oriented comps, and they just went, okay, this is what we do best, this is what we suits us, and I personally feel like they saw success on tests because of that. And for Gen.G, for Game 4 and Game 5 against FlyQuest, they're like, yeah, let's go back to our roots. We play scaling champs. We are boring. And then it was successful for them. And I don't know, that's like how I felt about the overall quarterfinals. But what do you think?
I mean, I think we can start maybe with the FlyQuest games because they are like the big talking point for everybody. I feel like the whole series, at least in my feeling, what I also mentioned during my co-streaming is that I felt like the team with the better late game draft was winning. Every time the composition that was scaling into the late game won games. And I think this is something that Gen.G read very, very well throughout the series and opted into these hyper scaling comps in game 4 and 5. I think game 4 you can argue because it looked like a run back from FlyQuest where they picked similarly to game 2 and 4, and game 2 they already got stomped. I think no one really expected the Kassadin. At least I did not expect the Kassadin, but it was a genius pick. Kassadin can cancel Nunu ult. Kassadin can like really hyper scale in that game. And of course it didn't help that FlyQuest really ran it down into him. I mean, Chovy played like these gangs perfectly, like mechanically he played them so well, but he got fed out of his mid-tier 1 tower, which should never happen. And then FlyQuest also, had the Seraphine team composition in game 1 where I felt like the team fighting was just so much superior to Gen.G's. And even game 3, they had the double AD carry comp that was just a ticking time bomb. And I feel like as soon as Masu got that double kill bot lane, when Gen.G tried to dive and failed, I feel like at that point the game was basically over because the Kai'Sa got accelerated. And, Kai'Sa Zeri late game, you don't beat that, right? So I think the read from Gen.G was really good and the adaptation from Gen.G was really good. And they went for that scaling comps. And the Yone or Smolder into Yone is something that they already showed throughout the tournament. I believe, I don't remember against which team they played it, but they literally had the same game where Chovy was playing Smolder and they gave up Yone as first pick for that Smolder and they played scaling into it and they also won that game. And I was surprised that FlyQuest wasn't aware of it because I saw, I think, Inspired the interview or someone else's interview where they mentioned they didn't expect the smolder at all. It's not something that they prepared for, and it's not something that they would anticipate going into game 5, which to me was very surprising because they are like Gen.G already showed it.
Yeah.
And Quad didn't, I mean, he performed well on the Yone in the game against Team Liquid, but that was a game against Kled mid lane, and he also has Skarner in his team. So the trade, I guess, even though Canyon didn't have like, I think, by the way, Canyon Skarner was not that impressive in my opinion. I think I think the best Skarner on Gen.G was actually Chovy. I think Chovy Silas, when he was stealing inspired ults in that game 3, he had really insane ults. The way he was buffering his chain and ult at the same time to prolong the ult and dash in team fights, that was insane. And that's something I think I saw on Twitter, on X maybe, when there was a play of Silas doing the same thing. And people call it like a Chinese TikTok play where like things are just like there's so many like scripted things happening, but we had team fights like this at Worlds where I remember the double Galio ult in the team fight.
Oh my god, that was so cool. Yeah,
that was so cool, right? And like
it was exactly the same time.
Yeah, it was insane. So but the same thing, I remember watching a clip on X where the Silas used E on a minion and used Yone ult at the same time, and because the E on a minion makes him go forward and you can cast abilities during it, you can cast Yone ult, buffer it, and then you go like really far, right? And it's the same that Chovy was doing in teamfights where he would cast E on a champion and Skarner at the same time, and that would make him go melee range and trap 3 people at the same time.
Oh my god.
Without the like canceling the whole animation, so to speak, because he didn't have to stand still to cast the ult. He was flying as he was casting, which I think was very nice. But that's just like a cherry on top of the cake, right? That's not as important. But I think, I was not super impressed with how Canyon played the Skarner with his ult and with his ease. But I think June, for example, had a great Skarner. Like June from BLG had a great Skarner performances throughout Worlds. And even Inspired, I think, was very good on it. But in the end, I think FlyQuest probably, I mean, they had a great series. And I think that we can say that brought a lot of hope back to the Western teams. Unfortunately, I feel like the win would be the turning point, in my opinion. Like, I really wish they would get away with the win. I wish that they could, maybe go back to game 5 and make a slightly different draft.
Yeah, or even 4. Even 4.
Yeah, even 4, right? Even game 4. And I don't know. I think that it was great that they pulled out so many tricky champions, but the Fiddlesticks set. And the game was like so slow and not much was going on. Like, I even wish Inspired would pick Sejuani and go with Sejuani Yone into that smolder and try to camp him. I mean, sure, you would probably get out scaled anyway, but at least I feel like we can take more skirmishes. But and also the way Lehens picked Maokai to counter Fiddlesticks, because as we know, Fiddlesticks needs to hide and needs to ult from the brush or ult from invisibility, like so people can see him and he can trigger his passive. But then Maokai saplings actually block that, because every time Maokai is in a team fight or in early game, Maokai can E the brushes, or Maokai can E to spot the Fiddlesticks. So I feel like, I mean, overall Gen.G adaptation was insane, and I just wish FlyQuest would win, but it was a great series, and in the end the better team won. I hope that we can have more Western teams competing against the East. We will see how the Worlds in 2025 are gonna go, and overall we will have 3 tournaments as confirmed by Riot, right?
Exactly.
So it's definitely gonna be interesting.
Like, okay, I remember asking this question to you several times, and I know this has become a very repeated question, but do you think the gap is closing, or do you think the gap can be closed?
I mean, I feel like it's difficult to say that the whole LAC or LCS would be on par with LCK or LPL.
Yeah, I'm not expecting that, but just like getting actual series out of the Eastern teams.
So I was thinking about it a little bit as well on my stream.
Okay.
And I think if the Western teams can get to BO5 and sometimes have a lucky draw, the only way now you get a lucky draw is if you are 3-0, 3-1. Even though the 2 3-0 teams actually, I mean, Gen.G was shaky, LNG lost, right? And Gen.G went 3-2.
Yeah.
And I feel like 3-0 doesn't actually help you as much. But my point is more, when we had the old World format with the 4 groups, normally you could get away with one wildcard team, one NA team, one EU team, and then one of Korea and China. And I feel like that gave the West a lot of hope to make it to BO5.
Yeah.
And then sometimes they would meet a team that would maybe have a bad day, or maybe, I mean, they could be competitive the way FlyQuest was, right?
Yeah.
So I feel like now in this system of Swiss stage, it's way harder for Western teams to beat Eastern, in my opinion, BO3, especially that Eastern teams have so much more experience in BO3s as they played in regular season. Meanwhile, the Western teams normally have BO1s, or, well, we do, like LAC has, I think LCS had BO3s and LEC has BO3s after the first 2-3 weeks.
Yeah.
But I feel like we still play way less games overall than the Eastern teams did. I think the systems might change overall next year, so we will see how it goes.
Yeah.
But I feel like in BO3s often we fall short. And I do think that if we could have more teams from the West in BO5s in quarters, it would be possible to challenge these Eastern teams, especially teams like FlyQuest that are not afraid to, like you mentioned, find their identity and play towards it. And I think, the Fiddlesticks, the Nunu, yeah, sure, it didn't work, but they did work. I mean, the Nunu worked one game against Hanwha. The Seraphine mid worked very well in the draft they had. So I feel like I would love to see more teams, playing towards their strengths. And even when G2 had a game against T1, I mean, they got 2-0, right? But they had a game where they play on Nocturne Oriana, and they was very close. And then they had a game where, and that was the game with Draven, and they actually got ahead bot lane. But then Hansama got solo killed by Zeus. And then like it felt that series like often they were making, especially game one, they were making a lot of rash decisions that were so unlike the team that I believe they would be, and not like how they looked against BLG. And I'm not sure if they were afraid of scaling or what they were afraid of. And even when they played BLG, it was so close. And right now, by the way, BLG is in the semifinals, right?
Yeah.
And G2 went 1-2 against them. And G2 had Omega close game 3 that could go either way. Yeah, sure, they got stomped game 1 when they had Oriana Nocturne. But the game 2, they actually stomped themselves. And then game 3 was so close. And that game 3 could have been just decided by the fact that, I mean, now Yaig and Miki are not in G2 anymore. But Yaig and Miki both turned at a Nashor, like in my opinion, not the best time, and it looked like some miscommunication from the team,
So
and maybe
what I heard is that they thought Bin's teleport was on a cooldown. And
yeah, I think that made them panic, I guess, right?
yeah. And then like if it was actually on a cooldown, then I think the Baron would have been the right choice. It was just like really unfortunate. Does it make sense?
But I think the Baron still was the correct call. I think the problem there wasn't that they started it. I think the problem was that first Mickey was trying to, I believe, zone 9, and he walked up. Was it Cream or anyway? Who is mid lane of BLG?
BLG is Knight.
Knight, yes, right. So anyway, so Mickey walked up to Knight and used his stun, and he got kited and have HP'd. But Tariq is so great at hitting objectives, and he can heal his teammates from Q. And then when the Nash was about, I think, 4k, and it was easily killable because the whole BLG team wasn't still there, and I think Elk just, or Elk or Jun just spawned.
Yeah.
Instead of still hitting, they tried to turn. Then Xin Zhao went in and he got solo killed because no one in their team was around. But Mickey didn't have a stun and Mickey was trying to focus Nashor. So I feel like both Mickey and Yaik made like a very weird mistake. And it couldn't be them. I'm not trying to call them out.
You're just like, dissing on Mike.
No,
I see, you're like, saying bad things about Yaik just because he replaced you. I see what's going on.
So from my point of view, there was some miscommunication between the teammates, or maybe they had different ideas on how to play this Nashor. But if they would just all hit the Nashor, finish it, and if BLG would actually go into the pit to contest them, they didn't have smite, then the fight would be better for G2. But the way they played it, that could have been just an experience, right? Maybe if G2 had more experience in situations like this, they would have won the game 3, they would have gotten the Nash, they would snowball the game further, and they would actually win. And I think that game was very winnable. And then if we have G2 in quarters, who knows, right? Maybe G2 can still fight on the level of FlyQuest. And we can be like,
they would be against LNG,
Yeah, exactly, right? And I think LNG was a good team, at least in 3-0, but they actually looked very shaky when they came to the... I mean, they had 12 days of not playing or so, right?
Exactly.
So I think I would be curious how G2 would do, and I don't think G2 was a bad team, and as much as I do think FlyQuest in the end had a better showing than G2 had at Worlds because they took Gen.G to 5 games, FlyQuest did stick to their beliefs and their style. And I think G2 would probably have done the same thing when, you know, they played this like Yasuo top lane, Sylas mid lane, and maybe they, I mean, I know Caps can play Seraphine. I'm not sure if you would pull it out or not, right? But I feel like a lot of drafts that G2 did could also be interesting. And their Draven bot, which, you know, not many teams actually play Draven right now. And maybe they had like more pocket picks, but
Berkeley
they didn't reach
played
BO5,
Yasuo,
right?
remember?
Yeah, exactly, right? So, I mean, it's a shame. And I think that if we can make LCS and LCS and LAC more competitive on a domestic level, we can push our teams harder during the season, and then hopefully we will have less catching up to do. But as a reality of the matter is, we have a lot of catching up every year because, I mean, there's just more games that LCK plays, LPL plays. There is more, they are normally ahead of the meta. They can play each other. So both China and Korea practice against each other during the season.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Europe and A don't play each other because, you know, the ping is too high. Meanwhile, from Shanghai to Seoul, you can actually play even if the ping is like 30, 40, whatever. It's playable, right? So I feel like there is a lot of like obstacles, but if we can raise the level of the league a little bit and we can have more teams like FlyQuest and more teams like G2, we can definitely close the gap or at least make it less wide. And then hopefully, you know, that's going to be just more exciting because I would love to see one Western team making semifinals after a banger like FlyQuest did, you know. Imagine they're in semifinals. If not FlyQuest, maybe, I know, G2, maybe other team, right? So I'm hoping that in the future, this thing that FlyQuest showed will become more popular and teams will, you know, trust themselves more and play to their style.
Yeah, like, I know, okay, I actually wasn't happy back in 2019 when you beat SKT. I was very, very sad when that happened. But at the same time, it was so exciting to have that version of G2 just actually being competitive and making Eastern teams scared. It actually felt like that one team brought life to not just EU, but also not EU, but also NA. People were getting excited. I just kind of missed that, you know.
I agree. I miss it too.
I didn't mean it that way.
No. I'm just joking. But even in 2018, I remember Fnatic reached finals. Cloud9 reached semifinals. And that was the year where LCK was struggling a little bit because of the changes to vision and how the game was played, right? And then we had G2 beating RNG, and RNG were like the tournament favorites, and we were the 4th seed from Europe playing from Plains. And we did beat RNG, which is a very similar story in my opinion to FlyQuest. With the difference that we actually did win that series, and we made it to semis, and then we got 3-0 stomped by IG. We don't talk about this. Yeah, I feel like, you know, that year, I think 2018, and I guess in 2017, I think
Misfits versus SKT.
Yes, exactly. And that story ended the same way as the FlyQuest story, which is very close, and then they lost. And then in 2018, we had one team in the final, and then we had Cloud9 and G2. So we had actually 3 Western teams and only 1 Eastern team in semifinals, which was crazy. And, you know, after that, 2019, we had the G2 year, the Fnatic year, where I think that in 2019, I think 3 European teams were in quarters. I think it was Splice, Fnatic, and us, and G2. And then G2 made finals again. And 2021 was semifinals from G2 Esports in China.
No, wait. 2020 was when you went to semifinals.
2020.
There was a year when you did not make it to Wells.
Thank you for correcting me. So maybe now I feel like 2017/18 was where the Western teams started to rise again. And I'm hoping that this 24 is again we are going back to that upper trend of rising, because let's be honest, 2023 and 2022 and even 2021, all of them were complete disasters. I think we had maybe one team in quarters in 2022. It was
Rogue back in 2022. They got 3-0 by JDG, and then in 2022 it was RNG who got 3-0 by Weibo Gaming.
And last year it was the, I think, NA team. I don't know.
So Energy was 2023.
Energy, But like they were not competitive, right? And FlyQuest was just competitive now, right, in the quarters. So
against Gen.G.
if we maybe that gives us hope, and I truly believe that 2025 we will have 3 tournaments, and even at the MSI, I think we had some Western teams fight. I mean, I remember G2 winning against TES at the MSI, for example, right?
They
Which
won
is
against
also like a
T1.
big. Yeah, they won against T1,
Yeah.
but then they lost to T1 right after.
Yeah, in the second one, yeah.
Yeah,
Hey,
but they won against TES, for example.
Yeah.
And by the way, that means that we are winning a series, right? In the
Exactly,
end, like people
yeah.
are forgetting that G2 actually was winning a MSI against Eastern teams.
Yeah.
So people were bashing G2 for like not making it 2 years in a row at Worlds, but they are forgetting they actually did quite well at the MSI, right? And I think at Worlds they were a bit unlucky. Let's be honest. I mean, I really appreciate FlyQuest making it all the way to quarters, but let's be honest, their way to quarters was so much easier than G2's.
Yeah.
They were playing against PSG, they were playing against GAM, they were playing against I think Team Liquid.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, G2 has to play against
Defending world champion, last world's finalist, LPO number 1 seed, LCK
Yeah.
number 1 seed.
Yeah, so I feel like G2 had a harder time and they didn't make it. And I think G2 will make quarters. I think they would put on a good fight the way FlyQuest did. And yeah, hopefully we as the West can stop being depressed and clinch our fists and hope we can again have a competitive year next year and maybe raise the level of our leagues a little bit, maybe make them a little bit more competitive. I mean, that's the point, right? Every year we have off season where so many changes happen and everyone is trying to be better. So
I guess I can talk about it because Mad Lion's official Twitter account can't stop talking about it, but I guess Jojopyun is coming to Europe.
True.
Yeah. Okay.
I
Like
think that's
usually I
insane.
don't talk about leagues, but like Mad Lions is literally selling Jojopyun uniforms right now, so I'm like, whatever, Like I think that's gonna
I think we can talk about it.
Yeah, I think that's gonna be super hype because imagine Jojopyun playing against Caps like every few weeks
Yeah,
and just like
absolutely.
leveling up. Like I'm excited not just only because of the move, but also wow, this is gonna make Europe and its mid lane pool so much more competitive.
I think that not only him, but I think we have Jackis and we have Vladi, who are the new raising very young mid laners that I think can defeat Caps with time or at least grow. I mean, Caps is our European GOAT and not only European. I think by far he's like the Western GOAT, right? Like he's the greatest player the West ever had. And I think that's going to probably stay this way for a couple of years. Well, the last 2 years I've been slacking a bit, not really making worlds. But yeah, I feel like Caps is great, but I think the more you play against him, the more the chances are that people are going to catch up to him. And if we can push Caps to, fight against these rookie mid laners, and then Jojopyun is joining that whole trinity of mid laners, right?
Yeah.
I feel like. Yeah, I'm very curious to see that, and I think Jojopyun was a really good player. I haven't played against him since MSI in 2022 and Worlds that year. But back then, at least, he already was like a very gifted mechanical player, right? I don't know how is he from the game understanding point of view. Of course, Cloud9 did not make it to Worlds this year, but I feel like Mad Lion's weak point, in my opinion, was Frescove and was the mid lane. So I feel like if they can develop Jojopyun the same way they developed Supa, Alvaro, and Merwin, I think they can be a very, very strong team, right? So I'm super excited to see them compete. And I think that's a great signing for them. I think it's very well scouted or very well played that they got him. And I think that's going to make our region stronger because as much as, again, Jojopyun didn't make Worlds, I feel like he was still one of the best players in the NA.
Yeah.
So we stole him now, haha. They stole Inspired and Beepo, and we got, I guess, Hansama back, but at some point Hansama left too. But yeah, we stole Jojopyun now, so we can be proud of ourselves.
As an LCK fan, I'm like going, first time?
True, first time, yeah. First time we stole someone.
Okay, because we were also talking a lot about champion pools, this is like a question that I really wanted to ask, and I know that the answer differs for every game, every team, but what do you think is the most impactful OP champion right now? Aurora, Yone, or Skarner?
I think it depends on the team. I think that all of them are really strong. I think that if you build around Yone well, it's probably Yone, just because of how much side lane pressure he builds and how much he dominates pretty much every matchup, and no one really outscales him on side lane. And you can defeat him in team fights, as we saw with a Smolder, for example. But I feel like the pressure you get from side and the skirmish pressure and even the scaling is so insane that if you have champions like Sejuani, Ziggs around him, it's so hard to end the game. It's so hard to you can't really do anything mid because they have Ziggs, but you cannot really play through side because they have Yone. And then the draft just becomes very problematic. I do feel like though for Weibo gaming, I feel like Xiaohu is doing so well in the Aurora Yone matchup that against this team specifically, I would always ban Aurora. Because I feel like I think if you ban Aurora from blue side against them, so for example, I think I'm gonna probably be cheering for BLG. So what I would like to see BLG do is I would like to see BLG just ban Aurora on blue. And I think that's gonna force enemy team to ban Yone because I think the Aurora is the only answer Xiaohu really has. I don't think they should open into Smolder. I think that's something that Gen.G alone can do. But by the way, just going back to that, right? Gen.G is the only team that actually had success in this. Like no other team is playing very well Smolder into Yone. But Gen.G is one of the few teams that can do it and did it twice and won twice. But Smolder into Yone matchup is terrible when raid out Worlds. So I don't want Weibo to do it. But I do think Gen.G can do it. So I would... And the reason I think Aurora is weaker than Yone is because I feel like if Aurora is top lane, she actually has like silent answers. But I think she also activates in teamfights a lot. When you have Nocturne or Wukong or Vi, even with Aurora, it feels like at some point when she gets a good ult, level 11, 16, when it scales up a bit, it's just so much AoE damage. Even if you flash out of it, you will get chunked to so low HP. And the way she pressures sides is also insane. And she's actually very slippery. So I do think Yone beats her on side. But in lane, it seems like Xiaohu was winning against Showmaker and was also winning in Scout. And the way he was winning in that matchup was really, really winning, like he was stomping this matchup. So I feel like Xiaohu is very, very good on that champion. And I remember some other team trying to do the same, trading Aurora Yone, and then the Aurora was actually not really winning the lane. I think even maybe it was Xiaohu against Showmaker playing from two sides, and I think Xiaohu on both sides of that matchup. But yeah, I think from these three champs, in my opinion, it would be Yone into Aurora into Skarner. So I do think that how teams prioritize it at Worlds is exactly the same. I think Yone has the highest priority than Aurora than Skarner. And I think why I think Skarner is... I still think it's really strong, but I feel like you can play against it in team fights, especially if you can have a stable early game. And the worst part about Skarner, or like the hardest part about Skarner is like his early skirmishes are so strong. But if you can scale up and pick something like Vi or pick something like Wukong or pick something like I think Sejuani with, let's say, Yone trade maybe against Skarner. I feel like these, for example, I think Yone is great against Skarner because every Skarner at Worlds is building Heartsteel into Sterak, which is total HP stack. But then you have Yone with Blade of the Ruined King crash. And then I think every time I saw this Yone-Skarner interaction, Yone is just completely like one-shotting the Skarner if the game is like not over, And even Quad was really doing so much damage to Canyon. But yeah, well, there was a Smolder as well, right? But the point is more that I feel like, for example, if I'm at Worlds, I would be really willing to give enemy Skarner and first pick Yone and then pick Sejuani with the Yone and play for skirmishes with a Rumble top or with a Cannon top, hopefully with a Galio ban or something, right? Ziggs bot lane, right? But yeah, Skarner looking pretty strong and he's so tanky, and as a tank he has so much damage in team fights. And then his ult is very, very tricky to play around because even if you are engaging into him, he can use it as like a tool to buy time, tool to peel, tool to engage, even though his engage is not that... It's not that easy, right? To always ult multiple people, but at least when you are going into him, it's quite easier. But I feel like he's a champion that, in my opinion, is like the most playable against from these three, for sure. I'm not sure. What do you think about these?
I'm not as smart as you, dude. I'm like silver at Korean server.
But I'm sure you are reading a lot of like the comments that Korean players make or Korean.
I think like the general consensus is that like it depends on the team, really. Skarner seems like people are rating Skarner pretty high because you can plug and play on Skarner on a lot of different situations. Perhaps even more than Yone. Like, Yone, as you mentioned, is good on its own. It's like super OP right now. I just think it's really, really OP. But at the same time, it does better with like certain jungle matchups. Like you mentioned, like Sejuani or things that can really take care of the mid lane. So I think like people are rating Skarner pretty high, but the general consensus is that people think Yone is the most OP or contested pick at Worlds right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
That makes sense.
So I'm happy that the Korean people also have similar opinions. Because I cannot read Korean, but I'm always
like they know League of Legends pretty well. Like you know League of Legends pretty well. So like people pretty much agree. You mentioned like you supporting BLG over Weibo Gaming. What are your thoughts on those two teams, and why are you supporting BLG?
I think it's BLG just because Bin. That's kind of my reasoning, right? I think Bin is a great player, and the way he operates Jax, but also other champions in team fights is just so exciting. And I think that, I mean, BLG, I don't even know if they are the underdogs or not, because they started Worlds very badly, then they changed jungle, and now with June they are doing so much better. And June seems like a very positive kind of guy, like similar to me in a way that he's like always smiling and always having fun. And it's really joy to watch them. And I mean, well, they did beat G2, so that sucks. But Elk had that insane team fight on Ezreal, where like he
so
really
crazy.
topped off. Yeah, that was
like,
insane. That's
every skill looked like a target skill.
Yeah, and that is, you see, there is no way that any Western Ezreal can even do that, right? Like that was like a pure difference between like China, Korea, and Europe and America. But yeah, I like really BLG a lot, and I'm just a little bit afraid that if Weibo makes finals, it's gonna be a repeat of last year, and it's gonna be just a 3-0 against either Gen.G or T1. And I feel like BLG potentially has the chance to actually contest these teams. And by the way, I would love to see Zeus against Bin. I think that would be just such a amusement to my eyes. Hopefully no lane swaps. We know these happen. They can happen, but lately we didn't have that many lane swaps. At least when the East was facing the East, we didn't have that many lane swaps, unlike I guess in the FlyQuest games. But yeah, that's, I think I'm cheering for BLG because I want to see exciting finals, and I just have more trust in BLG to deliver the finals, the exciting finals than the Weibo.
Like, I think a lot of people discounted Weibo as they came into quarterfinals because I think the predictions was pretty LNG favorite. Yeah, they were like the 3-0 team, like, you know, Scout was really popping off, but like, I just think that Weibo drafts really well. Like, they know their weaknesses and they really try to play around it.
I agree, and I also think Brief is having a great tournament as well. And apparently there are some memes in China that there are some memes with like disbanding, and that is powering him up. I was reading some, I think, Hupu comments on Reddit that are translated, and there are apparently some memes that like whenever they are telling him that it's gonna be like a disband, he gets a buff and he starts popping off.
He's gonna get what? Sorry.
No, disband is like the team is gonna disband. I don't even know where the meme comes from.
Okay.
But I heard that is what is powering him up. And his Gnar was a Manas. It was so insane against Fnatic as well. I remember him being 2k ahead. I mean, okay, Fnatic macro. I don't want to get into that because that's disgusting. But I think the way Brief was operating Gnar is crazy. And I do agree. I was one of the doubters. I thought Weibo is not gonna do that well.
No.
And they actually did. And I'm surprised. And I do agree with you that they drafted very well. They draft towards their strength. And I think it's one of the few teams that can trade Aurora Yone. And that makes some teams have to respect them and ban both, for example.
True.
And that is very scary if you ban both on blue side, in my opinion.
Exactly.
So I am just curious what is gonna be BLG's approach to that team. And, you know, BLG was struggling a little bit, right? And I'm happy that On finally found his form as well. Unfortunately, the BLG support was not playing the best game until the series against G2, where he just became a god again. I'm so salty. I mean, not that salty, but it's so sad.
You can be salty. Anyway, I'm salty. I love BLG, but at the same time, you know, I can be salty. Yeah.
So yeah, I will be cheering for BLG, and we will see. You know, the better team will win in the end. I just hope that we will have a more competitive final than we had last year.
One more question, if that's okay.
Of course.
I was talking to when LNG first made it to the quarterfinals, because they finished it 3-0, I had an interview with Scout, and he actually didn't look that happy, and he said, "This sounds weird, but I wish that we had some competitive games and we lost 1 or 2. Because that way we'll get even more experience." And at that time, I thought he was just flexing. Then I talked to Gen.G Pace, who also went up to quarterfinals on 3-0, and he also actually kind of said something very similar. Oh, I'm not sure about the break. And then after FlyQuest versus Gen.G, I talked to Helper, and he said, yeah, this was the day when I felt like 3-0 start is actually a penalty, because the 15-day break almost felt like the players couldn't get into the zone again quickly enough.
I agree.
Okay.
No, so the point is that I think that it's too long. I don't remember if it's 12 or 15 days. I don't know how long the break is, but between 3-0 and 3-2, there is such a long period of time you are not playing. And I think that's terrible for the players because, I mean, okay, we do change arena. We go from Berlin to Paris.
Yeah.
But even though I felt like Gen.G, the way they played against FlyQuest, I think FlyQuest had way better draft in that game one and they should win. But they were so uncoordinated. Lehens was just engaging. No one was around him. Like things were happening. And maybe they were just disrespecting, or maybe they were a bit, out of the zone, but yet LNG also lost. And I feel like these 3-0 teams are struggling a lot. And I think the break between being completely zoned in and let's say finishing 3-2 and then having only 3-4 days. And by the way, even when you have 3-4 days, you have like camera days with Riot, you have to travel, you don't even scrim that much, right? But just the feeling of going on stage and then in few days on stage again, I can already tell you from experience, when players can play one day and then the next day, they are way more locked in. And I'm not talking about LAC BO1s because that's a terrible system. I really don't like that. I really don't like us having 3 separate BO1s, but that's just a whole different topic of LAC system, which I think became not the best over the last 2 years. I think it's just, but yeah, anyway, going back to the 3-0 Worlds format.
Yeah.
I think it's just much more beneficial to go 3-2. I think if you are a good team, like BLG, for example, and you go 3-2 or even T1, 3-1, I feel like that's just better. You play more games on stage, you get more stage experience, you get to play at Worlds more, and at the same time, you have a less of a break between quarterfinals and the Swiss stage. And I think the break is actually, at some point, the break becomes too long, and it gives advantage to the teams that are more in the zone on stage and that feel like they were just here yesterday and they can keep performing, to the teams that had a 12, 13, 14 day break and they go on stage and there is like that. It's not like a stage fright, but as a player, I can tell you from experience, there's always a difference between a player playing day one and a player playing after 2-3 weeks of games, right? Normally, we always have this meme in LAC that the first day of LAC or the first week of LAC is always like very low quality because everyone is going back to, I mean, there's some stage fright, there is some choking, there's some inting, there is just not the cleanest gameplay. And this is what Gen.G looked to me like in game one. And, you saying these things that Scout mentioned, that makes sense. I mean, there was a top gap in that series, but I think that definitely LNG also looked way more shaky, right? And they didn't get that many games in.
Oh, wow. Like, it's almost like jogging, right? When I get on my shoes and tie my shoelaces and just head out, like, in the first minute or so, it feels like a bit more uncomfortable. And then your muscle gets used to the rhythm of running and then you can run faster. I know that's like a really rudimentary example, but like...
No, I think it's great.
Okay. Oh, thank you.
No, I agree with that completely.
Final question. What's your prediction for Gen.G versus T1? Okay, the reason why I asked this is it's really interesting because in any other day, people will say Gen.G are the favorites because of the head-to-head record. Like, winning best of fives for like 5 times in a row, that's pretty huge. But this is like the strongest T1 I've seen the entire year. And I can't judge Gen.G based on the FlyQuest series, but this is like perhaps the shakiest Gen.G I've seen the entire year. So when I ask every other people, they say this might be 50-50. It's so difficult to predict.
I mean, I agree with everything that you mentioned, right? I feel like T1 right now is having... I mean, they are just different. They are just a completely different team than we saw in LCK. And on top of that, Gen.G looks very shaky against FlyQuest. And we can give credit to FlyQuest. But I also feel like the reason why they look shaky is because, again, they had a long break from 3-0. But also FlyQuest did prepare a lot of weird picks that we might not see from T1. I think these games will be... I mean, these teams really know each other well, and I would not be surprised if they even scrim each other throughout Worlds, at some point at least. So they probably know what to expect, and I don't think there'll be like a lot of weird things happen. I mean, we'll still see probably like Keria and Guma playing stuff like 18 lakhs, which is great, but I don't expect... the players, I mean, for example, Nidali might just be banned for the whole series from T1, right? Like, I really don't know what's going to happen, but I feel like these teams know each other so well that somehow Gen.G always gets the better of T1, but I'm hoping that the world semi-final buff for T1 is really going to push them over the edge and and that would, by the way, be a great storyline. That Gen.G always beats them, but then they meet at Worlds and then T1 wins, right? So I will be cheering for T1 and Canyon. I mean, I will cheer, like, I love Gen.G and I love T1, and we had this conversation. I don't want to go back to it, but yeah, I'm a Faker fanboy, so I'm going to be fanboying Faker over the series, and I hope he can get the better of Trophy this time.
Yeah.
And, my prediction is going to be 3-1 for T1.
Oh.
I'm not even going to give Gen.G 2 games here.
Oh, wow.
Canyon, please forgive me!
No, I get that. Like, remember, like, even last year, like, JDG was supposed to be that super strong team, like, just one step away from Golden Road.
Mm-hmm.
And then T1 just came in and, like, 3-1.
Exactly.
Yeah, might be the repeat of the last year.
Might be the repeat of his. And, the bracket we have is the same as last year. The story is very similar. G2 had pretty much the same teams. And, we had 1 and 8 team that, like, I feel like they are just reusing the script at this point. So we will see. We'll see how it goes.
And,
but,
like,
yeah, sorry.
Oh, sorry. I'm just thinking about all the teams. Like, it's so difficult because I really want Bin to become like, in like this another interview that I did with him. He wanted to become like the next league's superstar because he feels like league needs one, and I can agree with his sentiment. And like, given his playstyle, his mechanical gifts, and then also the way that he doesn't shy away from expressing himself and giving strong opinions, I really want him to succeed and have a title behind him. So I
think that would be great as well.
Yeah, I want Bin to succeed. I want Knight, who's like the Chinese trophy almost, like to finally get a title. And then I see Weibo, and then I really feel for Xiaohu. I really feel for Tarzan. Like, I want them to succeed. And I'm like, T1, of course, oh my God, the boys. Like, like, I know that they won so many times, but I want them to win again. And I look at Gen.G, oh my God, Trophy, will you finally get like a Wells title? And I'm like, wow. I'm not gonna.
Wait, so do you have your favorite? Like, who do you think is gonna win?
I'm not journalist. Can I do a cop out?
I see.
Okay, can I tell you after the stream privately?
Okay, sure, that's fine.
Yeah, but I don't know. I think we just like brought this Wells into a conversation, and I just asked any question that was on my mind, and you just gave me amazing answers, and I just think this was a conversation. It was a conversation.
Yeah, I think it was great.
Yeah, but anything you want to say to, let's say, Korean fans who are really appreciating your highlight moments, such as twerking to Kenyans, like literally, but
no,
but like
I mean, I'm very grateful to the Korean fans for tuning in sometimes to the highlights, like twerking to the Kenyans in Italy. I really like LCK, and I wish all of your teams best of luck, and I will be supporting Faker. So maybe some of you will, and maybe some of you won't, but I think we will have great League of Legends to watch.
And any final words to the Western fans who perhaps felt a bit sad that you weren't playing it well, and of course you dropped out, but they do appreciate your presence in World's coverage. I definitely know that you do. So any message to your many viewers and LEC fans in general?
I think in general, I guess to all the fans then that, thank you for supporting me so far. And even though from my personal experience, the year wasn't the best, and last year as well, I didn't make the Worlds, I'm sure that, I will work hard in whatever comes next. And for now, I guess, let's see Worlds. I think we have a great tournament, and I'm hoping that next year, whatever happens, I think the Western teams will do well. I think that what FlyQuest did is going to go well, and I think what is happening in Europe, the teams are trying to be stronger.
Yeah.
And then we also see tournament changes and more international tournaments, and maybe there are some rumors about Fearless Draft, right? So I think it's great
by the way,
to be a League of Legends fan.
Okay, I completely buzzed you into it, but what do you think about the Fearless Draft? Like, I had to ask.
I love it. I absolutely love it.
Okay.
I think if I'm a pro player, I want that. I want that every game. I want because imagine we don't see Aurora, Yone every game, but we pivot into champions like, I don't know, Timo Kanter picked up. I mean, okay, maybe that's too far, and maybe that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
But if we had a BO5 of a Fearless Draft between Gen.G and T1, I feel like that would be insane. Like, what is going to Zeus play? What is going to, Keen play? Like, I think that would be completely insane. So I would love to see more Fearless Draft tournaments. And I think Riot needs to slowly get into it and test the steps one by one. But I would absolutely love, maybe not at Worlds, because maybe it's too prestigious and too important and you don't want to experiment around that, but maybe at the Messiah or maybe at the third Riot tournament that's going to happen at the beginning of next year.
Yeah.
So I think it's great. And I think that kind of would keep the audience entertained and would also prove why are you a pro player, right? Because as pro players, we are supposed to play many champions and we are supposed to be talented and we are supposed to have many ways of playing the game and not just grinding the same 2 champions, 3 champions every game, right?
Exactly.
So I'm definitely looking forward and I hope it's going to be a thing.
Okay, because like as a fan, of course, I thought it would be more exciting. I wasn't completely sure how the players felt about it. I definitely felt that this actually, like, is a good opportunity for veteran players to provide value. Because let's say if Nunu appears, right? And you know what the Nunu does.
Yeah.
But maybe...
But Doran doesn't.
Doran is Doran. Okay, I still love Doran, but like he didn't know how old, like not old, but like Nunu. Yeah, stun worked. But like even if you are not directly laning against a foreign champion, having a player that can immediately tell you, okay, that's a Teemo, I'll tell you what it does. Like, having the player is much more valuable. So I just think that this is like a really great time for veterans. I know they already appreciate it, but for them to be appreciated even more.
I agree. I think that would be great for the old folks like me, No, but I'm super, interested because I feel like, yeah, sure, players with experience that play against these champs can step up in that matters. But also, I mean, yeah, veterans did play so many games of different champions and they can maybe pull them out potentially. And again, like you mentioned, it's going to be so exciting for the fans because we will not see the same Skarner jungle every game. We will maybe see, a view from certain teams. And then you also, if it's a BO3, BO5, you can test your strats and you can give up the OP picks and you can try playing something into it. And then you know that you don't need to play against these OP picks again, so you don't even need to ban them throughout the series and stuff. So I think it would be really good. And I know that some people have opinion of Worlds is the place where we test the best skills and the best preparation on the patch, right? So then it makes sense to have no fearless draft and to be the best teams are playing in that meta and who is the best at this moment of the time. So yeah, maybe not at Worlds, but please just make it at MSI, make it at other tournaments, or make it during the season at LAC or LCS or LCK, LPL. I think it will be great, and I think everyone will be excited to have it.
Yeah.
And we have so many champions, so yeah, sorry.
No. I just realized that I cut you off in the middle of you like talking about the LEC fans because I just want to add one more thing. Like, dude, it's so good to have you around. I don't know whether you realize it, but like from like a LEC fan perspective, like, I'm speaking as an LEC fan myself, especially for someone who's been tuning in for a very long time. Like, it is really good to have your presence and voice around in one way or another. So yeah, there was one I want to say, but you were just addressing the LEC fans.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. And I think I got my message across. So
yeah. Okay, cool. That's it?
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah. Okay. Well, again, thank you so much for making this time. And yeah, for you, I'll say T1 fighting.
Yeah, T1 fighting. Thank you. Bye-bye.